House Republicans preferred industrial service stocks related to oil and gas. Imagine that. While House Democrats followed their Senate colleagues and focused on tech. Technology surpassed all other stocks in both the House and Senate by a wide margin totaling nearly $50 million. In terms of stock sales, tech services outclassed all other sectors in both the House and Senate. The House sold $61.9 million in tech stocks, while the vast majority of the sales were made by House Democrats. The Senate sold $7.28 million in tech stocks. This time, the Republicans were the primary sellers. Second place in stock sales differ between the House and Senate, and the primary sellers also vary. So in the House, the second most sold stock were industrial services, the sellers being almost entirely Republicans. Industrial services might include something like 3M making N95 masks, for example.
So is it illegal? So let me ask you this. Is it illegal? Okay, so let's say I'm or whatever, I'm in the House or whatever, I'm just a congressman. And I sit in one of these committees that I have back information, that I have insider information, right? If I go and tell anybody, is that illegal?
No.
Because it's illegal if it
would be illegal if you did it, but not if they do it.
That's my point. Like, how crazy is that?
Well, so the Stock Act made it illegal, and then they passed an amendment to the Stock Act where the houses of Congress, the House and Senate, are the ones who adjudicate the legality. So they police themselves on it, and they just never do it.
How crazy is that?
Because it's pretty wild. Like it's wild that they would fucking pass the bill to restrain themselves, and then immediately pass the bill to say, "Hey, we got this, guys. We'll cover it. You don't have to worry about us." Yeah, it's fucked. And no, it's not illegal at all.
But it's illegal if I did it.
Correct, yeah.
So I would go to fucking jail. People do this all the time.
You would go to jail and they would fine you for the amount plus, right?
Yeah.
So you would be in debt, probably bankrupt for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're not part of the fucking aristocracy, buddy. In the Senate, electronic technology took second place in sales, this time with Democrats being the best sellers, and the remaining stock sales are mostly evenly distributed around all the other sectors in both the House and Senate, aside from a couple of minor spikes seen in distribution services and miscellaneous stuff. So if you're wondering how any of this happened or why it's still legal after we've exposed so many of these people, it's because every single one of these motherfuckers is doing it.
Yeah.
Like the Republicans and Democrats aren't fighting with each other over money. They're fighting to keep this shit secret so they can keep doing it and keep you fucking poor while they get rich.
The Republicans don't want this coronavirus shit to end any more than the Democrats, because guess what they're all fucking doing right now?
Gaining money and power.
Gaining fucking money and power. You know, it's both sides.
Yeah, for sure. So the total value of stocks traded by Congress, a little over half Democrat for sold in the House, and about half Republican, half Democrat in the House for purchased. Total sold and purchased about $290 million. Dope. So let's talk about the chart that you've all seen us show here and on Drigger Bros as well, which is these 35 geniuses in Congress that quote-unquote beat the market.
And obviously it makes more sense for there to be way more money traded in the House and the Senate because
there's more people.
Fucking people are there.
Yeah, but also I just want to remind the audience that 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 major hedge funds globally beat the S&P average this year.
And how many is there? Like, do we know how many there are?
There's thousands.
Yeah.
And 35 fucking politicians.
Can we can we look it up how many like total hedge funds there are? Just to put that in perspective, right?
3,841.
And 3 beat it.
So 1,000th, actually about 0.8 thousandth of a percent.
Dude.
But 35 fucking Congress people do. So,
and I wonder if of those 3...
like 35 to, or 35.
Well, and I wonder if of those 3, This will be interesting.
So 6.5% of our politicians beat it.
Can we figure out? I wonder if of those
Jesus
three,
Christ.
that beat it, I wonder if any of them have any wives or husbands that are.
Yeah, I'm sure it's way worse.
Congress.
It's always way worse than it ever appears. You're a firefighter. You know what it's like. If you see something that looks bad, it's way worse once you get inside. So the ones that beat the market, 16 Republicans and 19 Democrats in 2021, with 7 out of the top 10 earners being Republican. The top 10 members of Congress that succeeded in beating the market in 2021 in order are the following. Austin Scott, Republican. Brian Mast, Republican. French Hill, Republican. John Curtis, Republican. Dan Crenshaw, Republican. Nancy Pelosi, everybody knows her fucking party. Dan Reuser, Republican. David McKinley, Republican. Peter Welch and Debbie Dingell, which is an unfortunate name, Democrats. It's interesting that Crenshaw and Pelosi were almost tied. I mean, I would love to see an overlap of their respective investments.
Yeah.
To see how close they were. It's like you see a relatively young politician and then a very old politician, old both in years and in experience, and they get the same outcome.
You know what?
It's like sitting next to the Asian kid in math class.
You know what Congress is kind of reminding me of?
A circus?
No, even better. It's kind of like the old WWE, right? So like Biden is kind of like Vince McMahon. And like they're all come out, they hate each other, they build these to the media, they build all this shit, but really they're just friends and they're just all fucking acting to the public.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. This is all a game. Here's some sketchy trades that happened. So when the data is aligned with events that took place throughout the last year, a number of conveniently timed trades were found to have been made by Congress, and this is, again, unusual whales figuring this out. So Brian Mast purchased Tilray stock right before he voted in support of the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act in late 2020. Tilray obviously grows weed. He subsequently sold the Tilray stock for a 563% return. Kevin Hearn, who sits on the House Committee on the Budget, bought Lockheed Martin stocks once in August. And then again, remember in August we gave the Taliban $80-some billion worth of equipment that we now have to replace. And then again in late October, just 2 weeks before Lockheed Martin won a $10.9 billion contract to modernize the Air Force's F-22s. Now, that would have been a vote that he would have taken part in. So he bought stock twice, August and October, then in November.
It's kind of like Pete Rose. I mean, he gambled on himself.
Then in November, he fucking voted for them to get a $10.9 billion contract. Kathy Manning, who sits on the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, also purchased stock in Lockheed Martin in October. Same deal, right before the contract was announced. Zoe Lofgren bought $15,000 in Lucid Group stocks, a company that creates electric vehicle technology, which is up 71%. She co-sponsored legislative proposals for electric vehicle tax credits. Oops.
Yeah. Oof.
Nancy Pelosi, shocking to hear her name on here, disclosed exercising 150 calls on Microsoft stock on March 19th of last year.
150? Yeah, that's crazy.
On March 31st, the U.S. Army announced a $22 billion augmented reality deal with Microsoft and reiterated its commitment to this partnership in October. Pelosi exercised the calls at a strike price of $130, which is now up by 160%. Senator Cynthia Lummis, which is really close to lupus, bought up $100,000 in Bitcoin in August while the Senate was actively drafting crypto regulations. Tommy Tuberville sold up to $15,000 in Microsoft stock in late June, just 2 weeks before the $10 billion Jedi contract with Microsoft was canceled. Tuberville sat on the Senate Armed Forces Committee, which had inside information on all defense contracts. Pat Fallon, who sits on the House Subcommittee responsible for reviewing DoD software contracts, also sold Microsoft stock right before the Jedi contract was canceled. Blake Moore disclosed buying up to $60,000 in Raytheon stock while sitting on the House Committee on Armed Services, which, by the way, Raytheon is a defense contractor So this guy who votes on something before it can even get out of committee to the main body of the House is buying their stock.
Yeah.